Hi AP World History students. Let's jump into lesson 3.7. This is about the Byzantine Empire. This is a great example of an interesting continuity between period 2 and period 3. What is the Byzantine Empire? First of all, it's a made-up term, to be honest with you. People living in this place, let's say in Constantinople at the time, wouldn't have recognized Byzantines as a name that they associated with themselves. To them, they were the Roman Empire. They were what remained when the western half of the Roman Empire collapses and the eastern half stays. They would refer to themselves as the Greeks as well, referencing the fact that this was the Greek-speaking half of the Roman Empire. But what we're talking about here is this eastern, healthier, wealthier, more cosmopolitan half of the Roman Empire that survives the fall and lasts for another 1,000 years. The Byzantines' biggest characteristics, language-wise, they're speaking Greek. In terms of government and bureaucratic style, they are very Roman. And in terms of culture and religion, they're Christian. And they're taking those three things and really blending them into something fully formed and unique. And the Byzantines and the Muslims are doing the hero's work of preserving the knowledge and preserving many of the achievements of the classical world and kind of keeping those things alive and building on them while Western Europe is in disarray. The highlight of the Byzantine Empire was its capital, Constantinople. Constantinople, it was called New Rome at the time. It was probably the most dazzling city in the world. It was literally the gateway between Europe and Asia. At the Bosporus, where the Black Sea and Mediterranean Sea meet, it has enormous, beautiful churches and stadiums where there's chariot races, and a lot of the trappings and the amazing things of the ancient Roman Empire were still being carried on there, and the people living there had the highest standard of living in the world. And so that city, you know, the Byzantine Empire is going to reach a point where it's essentially nothing more than that city. But that city is going to remain something pretty special. This map here is showing us an image of the Byzantine Empire at its height. Now let's note here, this is in the 500s, so this is before the explosion of Islam. It's before Muhammad is doing his thing. And we see that for a period at least, the Byzantine Empire is able to kind of reclaim or take hold of much of what used to be the Roman Empire. Politically speaking, the most significant and the high period in the Byzantine Empire comes somewhat early on under the rule of Justinian. So this is a name, this is certainly a period 3 name we need to know for our course. So Justinian and his wife, Theodora, who is kind of a sometime co-ruler, an interesting person. We'll get to her in a moment. Justinian is important and famous for several reasons. So there's his military conquests. You know, those are always leaders like military or political leaders like having those notches on their belts. Justinian's armies, the goal was we're going to reclaim the old Western Roman Empire and reclaim Italy, and that was successful temporarily. It's not going to be a sustainable victory for them, but that is something where on that map again, where you can see his armies did reclaim much of the old Western Roman Empire. One thing that we thank him for today that you can go and see for yourself at some point, if you ever get to go to Istanbul in your life, is the Church of Hagia Sophia, the church of a cathedral of holy wisdom. He wanted to create a building that would surpass the glory of the Roman Pantheon and any Roman building, and he created something truly spectacular. He and the people who designed it and built it. And he wanted it done in his lifetime. They had the builders do this crazy thing of starting on either side of it and sort of building it together so that it was like we were just going to double our efforts to have this thing done and done quickly. It would have the largest dome in the world. It was filled with these incredible, this incredible art, this mosaic art. Actually, the image you see right there of Justinian is from the inside of the Hagia Sophia. And it would be kind of the greatest monument to Christianity that would exist for a long, long, long He also got to have the plague of Justinian named after him, which was less impressive and less happy. I guess it's impressive in a disturbing way. 25 million killed across the Mediterranean. Yet again, the effects of trade. That was a plague that came in along the Silk Road. Of course, the Byzantine Empire is right there at the end point of the Silk Road. And so Silk Road trade brought with it this early version of bubonic plague that killed millions, unfortunately. Here we see Hagia Sophia. What can you say? Just stop and take it in. Now, the towers, the minarets, those were added later, of course. Those were added later when this is under Muslim rule, when the Ottoman Turks had taken control of the city, much later, after the 15th century. So sort of, if you want to imagine it in Justinian's day, you kind of like take those minarets out of the way. You see an image of it on the inside, which is just beautiful natural light streaming in, and it's one of those. It's on a short list of places I want to go if I can talk my wife into it. Up at the top, we see an image of Justinian flanked with the symbols of power, right? Flanked with government bureaucrats, flanked with soldiers, and of course, flanked with Christian church officials. We'll talk about the Christian church in Byzantium pretty soon. Byzantine kings were draped with authority, very much like the old Persian style. The old Persian cult of kingship is something that's kind of alive and well in Byzantium. But interestingly, Theodora, Justinian's wife, doesn't have like an official position of power, but she was an extremely powerful and controversial woman, and worth noting here. She was not liked by the other people in power, and it's easy to imagine why not, right? She doesn't hold an official position. She didn't come from an esteemed background. Quite the opposite. Her father was a bear trainer in a circus. Her background was, as best we can tell, as a striptease artist. And so for like those in the religious hierarchy, this would be deeply disturbing. So historians, the Byzantines loved writing histories. Their historian, the biggest historian at this time, his name is Procopius, and he's writing all about Theodora, and he has virtually nothing good to say about her. And he says that she is just lustful and deceptive and ruthless. It's hard to find a kind word about women in power written from people who were their contemporaries in history. They're usually described as either sex-addled or manipulative or ruthless. All those things, and frankly, those things might be true, but frankly, they're also true of a lot of men in power, and the historians at the time didn't hold that against the men in the same way that they held it against the women. There's an interesting anecdote during this thing called the Nika riots, which were riots triggered, apparently, as best we can tell from chariot racing controversy. But the crazy riots overtaking the city, and Justinian and his officials are preparing to flee, and she says, I forgot the exact quote, but it's like, I would rather die in purple, like die sort of in power, than flee as a coward. And she says that to Justinian, and Justinian sort of says, okay, well, let's stay and let's fight it out here with this mob overtaking the city. And they stay, and they kill 30,000 rebels, and I guess that's a happy ending. I don't know. It tells you something about Theodora, though, and I love this picture that Procopius paints for us of literally they were all on their way out of the city, and Theodora says, we're staying and we're fighting it out right here, and we're going to kill these 30,000 people rioting in the city. It's a crazy story. It gives you some picture of her, and an interesting woman in a very powerful position in those days. The biggest, most lasting achievement of Justinian, along with the commissioning of this cathedral, is a new legal code, or a reformed legal code, the Law Code of Justinian, or sometimes called Justinian's Code. The Byzantines, again, did not perceive themselves as being anything different than the Romans. They felt that they could make a reasonable claim. They were the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire didn't collapse. It's right here. It's us. Justinian commissions this work to be done, to take the Roman legal code, the Roman legal system, which was remarkable in its day, important in its day, especially for the concept of natural law that applies to all people. However, the Roman legal code had grown and grown and grown and grown, and it was now thousands and thousands of volumes of texts, which no judge and no lawyer could realistically be asked to understand in its entirety, and full of contradicting laws and kind of confusing principles, and it had just gotten like a mess, right? It's a garden that had not been weeded in a long, long time. So the work that's picked up here is we need a functioning legal system, not just something that used to be great, but it hasn't really been carefully pruned or weeded or reformed in a long, long time. We need something that's functional and good for us now and moves ahead, and that is coherent. So his legal experts just sift through these thousands and thousands of books, if you can imagine this work. And what they do is, 2 parts law, 1 part philosophy. And it's sort of understanding what are the laws, but what is the idea behind the laws, and clarifying the underlying ideas, so that future laws could sort of build on it in a way that's going to be coherent, and that's going to make sense, and that's going to fit together as a whole. So in the end, what Justinian's Code is a synthesis of an enormous mountain of Roman legal thinking distilled into a single volume. It's still a big volume, but a single volume that it's realistic for a lawyer or a judge to sort of know and comprehend, and now we have a legal system that truly functions again. And this becomes, and the Byzantine Empire and effectively Europe moves ahead with this. And this legal system, this code of laws, becomes the basis for most legal systems in the world. Not ours. We've got this funny British one with common law and juries and things like that. And many parts of the world are using Sharia law. But for those that don't do the British law and don't do Islamic law, Justinian's Code is the foundation for effectively the legal systems everywhere else. Now, when we talk about the Byzantine Empire, one thing that's really essential to understand is how Christianity worked within that, and how that was different from what happened in Western Europe. So just to quickly contrast and preview, in Western Europe, political institutions collapse with the fall of the Western Roman Empire, and effectively the only real institution, large institution that's left is the Christian Church. And so the Christian Church in Western Europe is developing independent of political institutions. It's its own thing. And in this effort to kind of keep theological control of what Christianity is, the bishops of Rome claim more religious authority to do that, and that's how over time you have the creation of this position of Pope, or the Bishop of Rome. And those popes saw themselves as the leaders of this one thing, Christendom. In Eastern Europe, though, in the Byzantine Empire, it just grew differently, and the ideas behind it were different. In Eastern Europe, in the Byzantine Empire, there was a vibrant political society that remained, and so there is Christianity and there is a Christian hierarchy, but that Christianity and that Christian hierarchy was something that wasn't separate from political states like it was in Western Europe. Is something that was really woven into it. And at the top, the big question, if it's woven in, is what has real authority? Well, in the Byzantine Empire, the emperor has ultimate political and ultimate religious authority. And effectively, the church was a branch of the state. The emperor would appoint someone called a patriarch. And I mean, if you don't know, a patriarch is someone that sounds and sort of looks a lot like a pope, but in the end, the patriarch had a boss, right? And the boss was the Byzantine Empire. That's different from the popes and how the popes understood their role. So Byzantine Christians didn't like it when a pope in distant Rome would make like a religious proclamation, or when decisions were made that they weren't totally in line with, because it's like, who's this guy, right? And why does this person have authority over us and have authority over the patriarch and have authority over the emperor? That was something that was never accepted, and the sides begin to kind of drift apart for those reasons, right? It has to do with institutional hierarchies and where ultimate authority comes from, and ultimately, does this person of the Pope have authority over us? The big argument that ends up eventually cracking the churches in two, or the church in two, has to do with religious images, and it's called the iconoclastic controversy. And it has to do with icons or religious figures. The Byzantine emperor issued an order to ban these religious icons. And it's interesting why. It's in part comes out of the banning of idolatry, out of the Old Testament or Ten Commandments. In part, it also seems to be something that when this is happening in the 700s, the Byzantine Empire appears to be sort of influenced by Muslim thinking, and the banning in Islam, the banning of religious artwork, and so these iconoclasts were the people who are getting rid of this religious artwork and going into these churches and sometimes painting over very old paintings, and the Roman Pope, the Pope is saying, no, these things are accepted, and these things are okay, and there's this sort of brouhaha about religious icons, and are these acceptable and are they not, and the initial controversy is resolved, but then it comes up again later, and eventually the year is 1054, the Pope and the Patriarch mutually excommunicate each other. And that is just the end of that. And so we, at this point, have a Christian church that is cracked in half into what we'd call Roman Catholic and Greek Orthodox or Eastern Orthodox. And this is referred to as the Great Schism. And you can see it on this map, kind of where the influence would go on to be. And of course, the Protestant church that we might be especially familiar with today, the Protestant church grows out of the Roman Catholic Church, out of that western side. The Roman Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox Church do not treat each other like, brothers that don't get to see each other very often. It's very guarded, very distant. They treat each other as rivals. And it's really only in recent decades that has started to be kind of patched back together, if you can believe it. That's been a very recent development. This is supplemental slide is for my many students who often want more details about modern differences between the two churches. I provide that information here, but I don't need to get into it right now. So the Byzantine Empire, again, at the start of period 3, the Byzantine Empire is more or less at its height. By the end of period 3, by 1450, it will barely exist. By 1453, it will not exist at all. So let's just talk about that dynamic. The Byzantine Empire was really aided by the fact that Constantinople was one of the most impregnable cities in the world. It was in a perfect location, right on this Bosporus or this peninsula, and they could control the strait, and they built walls. There's rocky cliffs and walls on the outside of the city, and triple reinforced walls from the mainland side. And the Greeks, who were technologically advanced, had these cool defense weapons. The most kind of famous one that kids get a kick out of is Greek fire, which is sort of like medieval napalm. It's this sludge that they could set on fire and squirt out into the Bosporus and set the water on fire or set other ships on fire, and it freaked other people out. And when the Umayyad Muslims tried to invade and take the city, that's what turned them back. So for a long time, Constantinople had this reputation as the city that couldn't be defeated. As time passes, Muslim armies, especially the Ottoman Turks, start chipping away at their territory more and more and more. So they're losing their territory in the Middle East. They're losing their territory in Central Asia. They start losing their territory in Southeast Europe. One of the worst things that ever happens to Constantinople was when it was sacked by Christians from Western Europe who were there as part of the Third Crusade. And there were not good reasons for them. We'll get to it later on, but it was very destructive for the city, and it's one of those damaging blows that it never really recovers from. And so for all these reasons, its territory is being chipped away, and finally the Ottoman Turks in 1453 put the Byzantine Empire out of its misery and take the city and rename it Istanbul, and it becomes part of the incredible Ottoman Empire, which we'll talk about later on. So that's the end of that. I hope that you get a sense of this place, of these people, of some of the differences between them and Western Europeans, and of this political high point of Justinian and Theodora. And thanks for watching, gang, and we'll talk soon. Bye.